Good day, everyone. Today's a follow-up video from an in-class exercise that went hellaciously wrong with a couple different issues in ArcGIS Pro, working with some Excel data. Primarily, I think we're all trying to do the same thing at the same time, and it created some issues. I'm not sure fully why. Some of it worked for about half the class, the other half of the class couldn't get it to load properly. So I'm going to show both ways today to kind of walk through. When I say both ways, I also have preloaded shapefiles for police districts and Little Rock Homicide for a couple years, just in case this were to have gone wrong, and it did in class. So I'm glad I had that prepped. With that, we're going to start off and just working in Excel, and this is similar to what we've used data-wise in the prior week. Grabbing the Little Rock crime data, limiting it to yearly files for homicide, adding in year, month, day, week, hour of day. I'm just going to focus on year to refresh everyone's mind with that. Month, day, and hour we've covered in other videos. But essentially, once you have this made in Excel, go into ArcGIS Pro and load up this data to visualize it, and then how you can create a map and add some of the features of the map. So with that, first step, hit up the Little Rock data portal. We're going to come down to Safe City, and I'm going to download both files again. So I need the police districts and also the crime data. With that, I know the police patrol districts here. The ones I need for the boundary files, I'm going to export again. I'm going to save it as a shapefile so I can open this into ArcGIS Pro pretty easily. With that, here we are, and I'm in week 5 now, so I'm going to create a new folder. I'm just right-clicking, new, week 5 in class, ARC. Go into the folder. I'm going to save the patrol districts in there. And I'm going to hop back, and I'm going to go to the actual crime data because I need this as an updated file. I've downloaded it dozens of times at this point, but I'm just doing it again for this video. Export CSV for Excel. I'm going to save it in the same place. I'm in week 5. I'm just going to change the name to LRPD crime data. And I'm going to load that. I already have an Excel file open, hopefully to speed up the process of opening the file itself. But you will notice down here when I did download patrol districts, it's a zip file. So with that, you have to go in and extract those files. So if you're on a desktop computer on campus, it'll be through 7-zip. If you're not using 7-zip, you will be just extracting files automatically. We'll come back to this here in a second, but I'm going to go into my file explorer. And I'm going to go into, I'm going to bring it over, my week 5. So you can see it zipped. It really has a zipper on it. If you're on a desktop on campus, it probably has a 7Z on it. You would right click here. I'm going to hit extract all. If it's on a desktop on campus, you'll have 7-zip and then extract files, and you can tell it where to extract it. I'm going to extract it to the same location, just in a folder itself. And this is what will be within the folder, and we'll open this in ArcGIS Pro. You can see it's named really bad, and for our purposes, I'll show you how to clean that up today. With that, we're good. I'm just going to minimize this in case I have to come back into it. But if you remember, we saved this as a CSV, so the first step would be to save this as a workbook. So I'm going to go to Save As and change it to a workbook. Hit Save, and we're good to go. Some of you in class that got to the point of doing the data part and bringing it into ArcGIS Pro, it worked for every year other than 2022. I'm not entirely sure why, but I'm only going to do a couple of years here just to show if you were to do it this way, what it would look like. So with this, it was asking for some time date stamps to be entered. So I'm just going to do year for our example today. Year, and we're just equal sign, year. I'm going to extract that out from the prior time and date field. With that, should be pretty common at this point. This is trying to match the column to the left of it. If you click on column B, our year one, and go into general again, we're good to go. I will actually show one that a student did just out of curiosity to see if it would work. And when they extracted hour of day, and I hadn't seen it done this way because I'm just used to using the hour formula to where it's just really hour. They pulled it out as a text field and did the same part that you would do with month and day, but changed it to H's, and you can see that it extracts it out that way with a 2-digit one that way. Still in military time, which I thought was pretty cool. I had never tried it this way, but I was pretty impressed that the student just out of curiosity wanted to see if it would work. It did. pretty cool that I'll probably just note in the future when going over this. So the next step is we want to develop a couple sheets of data. So with that, I'm going to add, let's say 2019 here, and let's do 2020. So we have 2 years of data, and now we need to apply a couple filters here to get down to 2019 and then 2020 and only have homicide. So I'm going to highlight the whole sheet, turn on a filter, come up, uncheck it all, go into 2019, and then offense description, I'm going to limit that to murder and non-negligent manslaughter. With that, we now have a data set that we can copy and paste. So I'm just going to Control C, or if you're cell A1, Control Shift down, right arrow, copy that, and it limits it just to this data set here, the data field itself. Paste that into the 2019. And now I'm going to come back to the original data set. I don't have to change my offense description. I need to change my year now to 2020. Click OK. I'm going to do the same process. Control Shift down, right, copy, and dump this into 2020. After I'm done with this, I'm going to go back to that original crime data sheet. I'm going to take off and clear all the filters. So if I come back up to filter, I'm just going to hit clear, and then I'm going to turn it off after that. Hit save, and now we have our data saved. Since we have latitude and longitude, this is what we're going to bring in and display in ArcGIS. With that, I'll close out. And I have already pre-opened Arc Pro. Typically, if this is your first time opening or getting used to it, this is the screen that will pop up. Mine is in a dark theme. When I say that, if you were to click on settings over here on the left, and you went into your options, and if you went into general, then application theme, you can change it from light to dark. Since I'm already in dark, I'm going to keep it that way, but yours, if it's just the lighter color, that's all the difference is. You can change it there. Now, if I go back, as we covered in class, you want to start a new project and you can decide where you want to save that. So I'm going to start with a template, and this will just generate the base maps for us. So I'm going to say week 5, Little Rock, LR. I'm going to specify where I want this project to be saved, and I already have a folder for this week itself. So I'm going to specify it's under me. So I want to go into my courses, spatial, week 5, click OK. And now it's going to create a subfolder within that attached to this project. We're good to go there. And this is where it's going to open up with some base map options. When I say that, it's similar to what we did in Excel. I'll zoom out a little bit. If it has base layers to identify regions, and kind of this one's the topographical map. If I came up to the top up here and came to map, I can click on base map and it will generate different options that you could swap in and out. So if I changed it to human geography map, it's going to change the visual detail that we have in front of us. And say, as I zoom in on Hot Springs, Malvern area, it gives you different level of units in terms of, it brings up streets now. So if I were to change this again to say navigation, it'll once again update and have more street labels on it, green space, waterways, and that type of thing with it. When you're using these, I would say play around depending on what you're trying to visualize and display with your maps. Some are more appropriate than not. The level of detail, you can always turn it off by just unchecking that box over here. So as we get used to and working in Arc Pro, our map tab up here is kind of our home one that we'll do a lot of work in. If you click on project, allows you to save it, open anything else. This is kind of the home screen. We'll do a lot of selections up here. This is where we'll add data. We'll get into insert, especially when we do our layout. We'll get into analysis because we'll use a lot of these tools up here. You probably don't have on yours this extension here that says crime analysis, but everything else you'll have on yours. We'll get into the toolbox over here quite a bit as the semester progresses. With that, let's get into actually just loading data in here and seeing what that looks like in GIS. So I'm going to come back to our map tab. I want to add data, and I want to add data that we just downloaded. So with that, I'm going to come back to my courses folder. It's within spatial. Here it's week 5. And I'm going to open the patrol districts. And the shapefile is the one I want. It's a boundary file. It's a polygon file itself. and it loads it for us here, and we can see that it's in lat and long below just based on the coordinates that it generated. Since it has all the information attached, it knows where to position it within our ArcGIS automatically. Now, when you bring it in and you see this name, it's a huge pain in the ass given how it's labeled. You do have the ability to relabel this. So if you double click on it, you'll have the name pop up, and I can say here, Little Rock Police Districts. And you can change the name of it there, and it updates in your contents area over here. Now you might look at this and be like, well, I would like to be able to see what's underneath each area or each district. So if I were to double click on over here in our contents, it's going to bring up the symbology specific to this police district's layer. So if I click on black outline, it's just going to apply an outline for those police districts. If I were going to the properties over here, it identifies that there's no color in it. So if I turned on red and hit apply, there's now a fill color applied to it. If I go back to no color and I hit apply, it's just the outline here. You can change the outline color. You can change the width of it here as well. So it gives you a lot of ability to manipulate what you're working with as a layer, much more of the cosmetic side that Excel doesn't give you the ability to manipulate as much. So that is handy in terms of oftentimes you hear making a pretty map. You can speak to that with the cosmetic changes that you can make to a map. The next step would be to add in our crime data. Hopefully, fingers crossed, it works this time for us here today. Again, we're taking us back to the folder we were just in, so I can click up here in terms of week 5, or if I hit the up arrow, it's going to go up one folder. And I would want to go into my Little Rock crime data here. And if, say you save something afterwards, if you hit F5, it refreshes your computer. Essentially, any files that you've been working on outside of Arc Pro, and the same time with having both programs open, you might have to just hit F5 to let it load. And this is where we had an issue within the class itself of, for some students, it would generate the crime data pretty quickly and you could load it straight in. Here, you're seeing a similar issue that some of the students in class had of, for a while, it took Arc Pro a fair amount of time to access this data. Even though I took the filter off, it's still showing, but at least mine appeared in here. So with that, I'm going to click on 2019, hold down Shift, click 2020. So I have two different sheets of data it's going to bring in and read for us. I'm going to click OK. And you can see over here we have standalone tables. It recognizes those. So if I click on one, and remember within our data set, and we've worked with this and we used it in the Excel mapping side, it has latitude and longitude for us, and Excel picked that up automatically for us to map it. We're going to do a similar approach here in Arc Pro, but we're going to hit display XY data. It's pretty good at identifying X field longitude and latitude. What I would recommend, and people in class saw this as an issue, especially when we added a legend, update your output feature class here. So you could say, make sure this is in our Geo Database. You want to change this, the end part. So this would be homicide. If you want to do underscore, I get in the habit of that. 2020. So specifically, it's that year. It just saves it a bit easier. And I'll show you the next one if I did not do that. Click OK, and it's going to create a new layer for us representing the homicides in 2020. You can see one's outside, and that could be for a number of different reasons, but we're okay with that for now. Now you will see, and I'm going to zoom in here to kind of show as an example, that this is our drawing order. So if I were to click on my police districts and pull it up above homicide, it's now on top of some of those points. So that is the drawing order. So if I change it back, now the points are on top of that. So there is a drawing order to this, similar to if you're using a PowerPoint or anything like that, where the layers can be sent backwards or forwards. This drawing order is a similar process to that. Now I can do it again for 2019. Display XY data. I'm not going to change it here to just show the example. Click OK, it's saving into that Geo Database. And this is where I say it's just not as interpretable. If you looked at this, it's not as easy to make sense of. Again, you can come in and change this to say, I want it to be homicide 2019. I can click OK then. We have that. If you wanted to change the 2020, even though you already have, I can take that underscore out and have it in here. With that, there's also attribute tables to this. So if you remember when you brought in these standalone tables, there's a lot of other information that were in the crime files themselves. So if I were to right click on either 2020 or 2019 and went to the attribute table, this is, think about the same information that you see in a spreadsheet in Excel. You see that in here. So we have the year, we have the date and timestamp, we have the hour, the incident number, the location, district, the code, all the details to it, including the weapon use, incident, address, city, state, and the lat long, and offense status, essentially if it was arrest made or not. So we have all that good information that we can use in the future to do other analyses with, displays with. So with that, if we got to this point, homework-wise, stellar. Half the class couldn't do this because it wouldn't load our tables for us. For the other half of class, I had them go back into Blackboard and I had them download this folder here. I'm going to save it to my week 5 one and just save. And I'm going to unzip this one as well. Extract all, and I'm going to hit extract to the same place. And within this one, I have police districts as well, already renamed just to make it a bit easier. But also I had homicide for a couple years. These are already in point file format for specifically ArcGIS Pro with that. So since we have these, I'm going to hit X on that, minimize this, and come back into GIS. Now I want to add those layers in. I'll add in 2021 just to show as an example another year with it. So I know this data is now in this folder, and this is where I speak to, I did something outside of ArcGIS Pro. There's a new folder within here, but I cannot see it since I messed with it outside of it. This is where you need to refresh, and I use on for a PC F5. I say that and it's not loading for me. That is because I saved it within a folder, and here it is. And I just drill down to homicide, and we go into homicide 2021. So these were brought in as a different type of symbol, just not a point. Again, similar to where you change the symbology of the police districts. If I were to click on the symbology of 2021, I have a whole, I could search for if I wanted a gun, and I knew these were all gun homicides. Or if I just type homicide, and it's under all styles, there's none in there. If I do gun, we do have, given this program is oftentimes used in crime analysis and law enforcement agencies, we have some of those options here. If I type in crime, we have different options here as well. I'm trying to see if there's anything speaking to murder or homicide. Homicide obviously didn't generate anything for us. And there we have murder with a essentially sketched out body. And you can change the size of it within the property. So if I clicked on one of those and hit properties, you can change the size and appearance of all of that as well, all within these tabs. That's where we'll get into the cosmetic side of it. The video and kind of the walkthrough is to get people familiar with just bringing in data to ArcGIS Pro, how to then lay it out and add in north arrow, title, scale bar, affiliation, a legend, some of those items that as we progress will be a staple in just about every assignment that we do. So at this point, I'm just exiting out a couple of these over here because I don't need them. We have this information. Say we wanted to make a map. So in Excel, we did a pivot table. You took that out, copy and pasted, and then you connected the district data, I think it was Ag Assault, to our districts to get a core plus map of the counts of Ag Assault or a motor vehicle theft by police district. Purposes today, we're just going to go in on how to create a layout of a map. I want to cover a few things with that. So if we want to get a map that's shareable to where we want to export this out as a PDF, a JPEG, picture file, whatever it may be, even put it online, we can come up to insert. And then within here, we're going to do a new layout view. And given the shape of Little Rock, and if you look at it this way, the width of it is a bit wider than say the height of it. So I want to select a layout that reflects that. So if you think about it, landscape style versus portrait, I'm going to click the 8.5 by 11. And it's going to have now a blank white piece of paper for me. With that, I need to now tell it what I wanted to display. And what I hadn't done in the past, and I had a student do this, was change, I had clicked something else up here. I can't remember which tab it was, but it was something that I hadn't seen before. So if you're ever in layout, you can always come back to insert And what you want to do is add a mapping frame here. So with that, I'm going to do default to where I tell it what I want it to map for me. So I'm going to click and drag from the top left corner to the bottom right. And now when this opens up, it's, well, there's the damn world. That's not showing me much at all. With that, you have the ability in Arc Pro to specify what you want it to focus on. So I'm going to click on my police districts over here. I'm going to right click. I'm going to say zoom to layer. Now the focus is going to be on this specific boundary file, which then fills out the map itself fairly well. So with that, a couple things that we covered in class of what we need to have in a map. One, well, we're just going to have a north arrow, and then find one that you like, and you can change it all the time. Just think about the placement of this. The focus is still going to be on the map and what you're trying to tell with a story on the map itself. So when I say that, I don't want to see huge north arrows. That's not the purpose. It's taken away. It's not needed at all. So I can hit Control Z. I can just draw another one to where it's more manageable, and you can zoom in and move things around at a smaller scale. I can zoom back out as well. There we are. Becomes a bit of a hassle at times. Oops. There we are. So I'm going to leave that there for now. I'm going to come up to a scale bar. I'm going to add in a scale bar, and if I do it at the bottom here, it changes it based on how long you make it, the distance that's shown. So right now it's 4.2. I don't care for the 0.2, so I can trim it a little bit until it gets to, say, 4, 3.8. If you have issues, you can always try to go up to, say, 5 miles as well. There we are. And later, probably in the next week or so, I'll get into how you can change how many hash marks there are, how many different points there are here in terms of the length itself. And sometimes I like my north arrow and scale bar to be close to each other. And you can see here that Arc Pro is trying to line these up for you. That's that green dash there. That is essentially adding a layout point, or a point where it wants to snap everything to try to make those about the same level. I'm going to go up a bit more, but not too far off. With that, you can add different types of text up here as well. When I say that, you have different options for titles. So if I were to draw just a rectangle up here, and I like this, it would be Homicides in Little Rock, Arkansas from, 2019 through 2021. And if I would hit enter here, it actually gives you the ability to go down and change those. If you click outside of it, and then you click on it itself, and you were to right click and hit properties, this gives you the ability to manipulate the text in a box over here, but then you can also get into the spacing, the size, and everything else with it. So if I go into text symbol, I go into appearance, I can change the size of the font to where, let's say 20. I can hit apply to see what that looks like. All right, and I can change the spacing of this so it's all still on the same line. I can change the font type to where if you have a favorite font type, again, make it legible to where if people look at it, they can see and recognize it. So Times New Roman shrinks a little bit, so I'm going to change the size to about 24 now. Hit apply, and you have that ability again to just change the length of this to where it can all fit on the same line. The other part that you can get into, as well as I'm going to minimize the appearance, you can get into the positioning. So if I want it centered itself, so if I were to stretch this, I don't know, no, there it came back. If I were to stretch this text box the whole width of the layout view, you can see that it's centered within the sheet itself. I like that, so it works out well that way. And then if you want to always bring it down, you can just shrink this a little to where you want it. And now you might look at this and be like, well, I wish there was some type of background color to it so it stood out a bit more from the map. You can. We have that ability within the properties itself. So just coming back to the original one, if we're in the text part, you click this down. We have also a background one here. Right now it has no color. You can change that to a light gray, anything that helps draw the attention away. So if I hit apply, we now have a shift in that. And we'll get into the spacing of the title, because obviously we would like it more centered. But for now, this at least draws the attention to that there is a break between the map and the title itself. And this is where I talk about the space, and we'll get into how to push this down. So if I even hit enter here, it moves it down. It's an easy kind of quick overview trick to get it down. And we're good there with now a title. The other part that I ask students to do, and this is essentially giving credit where credit's due and also taking ownership of your work, is to add the name, where the data came from, and your affiliation. So we're going to add another text box. I usually put these in the bottom corners because it's smaller text fields with that. So with that, I usually say creator or author, depending on what you want to use. It would be GDrawV. Source would be our data. That would be our data portal. And the affiliation, it's not giving me room right now, so I'll hit enter up here. Oops, I hit it one too many times. I'm just gonna hit enter or click out again, come back into, and you can see over here, sometimes it's easier to just work in the box when it's smaller text. So here I wanted to have my affiliation, and this would be University Arkansas, and you can put UA here, whatever it might be. Source, we got all of our data from the Little Rock data portal, so you could technically put the website to it. When we get into working with other types of data, we'll actually provide a citation there. And then once you click out of it, it'll update here. If you ever see these three little red dots and you can't see everything down here, all it means is it needs more room. So if you stretch it out, you can see now that we have those three down here. Again, you can change the font through the text symbol and the appearance if you want it all to be Times New Roman, or you want to make it smaller to where say it's 9 point. And then Times New Roman, you can do that as well. And if I hit apply, it updates, and then you can move it around for that. So at this point, we have a lot of the map elements. One of the big ones we're missing though is a legend, and legend's going to display based on what we have over here. So I came up to legend, they give you a bunch of options. I'm just going to click on the first one for now. And then want you to draw essentially a rectangle, a box of where you want the legend. So I'm just going to drag and click. Now you can see the legend here. And we have the same issue we did with the title of it having the background itself. So we might want to have an actual background color to it. You can see here, it gives you the options if you want it to have the legend say it, and if it's visible, or if you want it to show the title of the legend itself. So this is where we can get into the ordering of it. So you can see here, it starts with 21, 19, 20. If I were to change this in my drawing order over on the left-hand side, and click the layer order part, sorry, I forgot that part, it's now going to synchronize with the map. So again, if I drag and click this down, it's going to shift how those appear in the legend as well. So I go into my legend now though, I can change a lot of the same parts. So if I want to change the text again to Times New Roman to match everything, just to be consistent with that. If I were to want to change my underscore here to take that out, if I were to do that over here, I can change that. If I wanted to change this symbol for the 2021 back to say one of the dots just to match those, if I picked a black one, obviously the size is a bit bigger. So if I went into properties, I can change the size. I think it's about a 6. If I wanted to change the color, let's make these just red with red outline. That's still a bit large. Let's go down to 3, up to 4. That's more like it. So you can see you can change anything over in our drawing order. Once you do that, it updates with the legend itself. So they are synced that way. Later in the semester, we'll get into how you can unsync them and then change them individually. With that though, you might also want to get into the background again. This one has no color. If you want to match, you can use a similar gray here to where it has that box to it. You can apply outlines as well. So if you want to just set this apart, you can do an outline of that box itself. And I want to hit apply. Yeah, oops, I didn't mean to double click like that. So now your legend appears, and this is where you can drag and click where that's located. Since I made it that large, it didn't actually need all that room. So if I change that size, it's not going to affect anything. But you can set that apart that way. Similarly, Since the back part, and you can actually move the background of the map like this. I'm just dragging and clicking. I do this all the time. If you ever end up doing that, even the slightest amount, Control V or Z to undo, it just snaps it back to where it is. With your map frame, similar to what you can do with any of the other ones, you can go into the background of this one. If you want an outline, typically I apply an outline just so when we're exporting, we have some type of edge to it. So we have a black one along the edge of it, and you can kind of see it along the sides. And if you wanted to also go across from the title, if we were to click on the title part text box here, come up to our border, and here it has no color, and we're just going to change it to black. We can do 2 again. And you can see now, hit yes, I meant to apply it. You can see that we now have the same outline above and below our title, our legend, and then the map itself. So we're in good shape at this point. And this is where I say, depending on the computer you're at, you can still use your snipping tool to copy and paste. If you've gotten to this point, you can also go into your share options. And with that, you can print your layout. You can export it a couple of different ways. I typically do a print, and if I'm in a real hurry, I just go ahead and take a screenshot of it. But you can print it to a PDF. The PDF quality I like a bit more. That's just personal preference with that. And when I say that, I think it just froze my GIS. Oh, that's about right. Let's see if it will come back for me. And I made it 30 minutes without Arc slowing down. With that, well, it's not letting me do much. With that, if I were to have this snipping tool open and I asked you to put your map in it, you can export it as a JPEG, but here's where it's an example of the issue when you start to use the snipping tool. You'll then have to crop it to get rid of this space in here, but you have a final product, a final map that has a title. It has your map, your legend, north arrow, scale bar, your affiliation, your name, where the data came from, and now it's back up and running. Took a couple minutes, but we survived that. Exporting, this is where I say you can do a JPEG or a PNG, a lot of what we're used to, or even a TIFF, picture files themselves. So if I did a JPEG and I'm going to specify to, I'll put it in just this folder, and I'm going to say final map. Hit save, and you can change the resolution the higher you go up to the quality of. So I can move this up to 100. You can change this, and this is oftentimes what I use is limited based on the journal I'm submitting to. So if you did 500 here, you can see it'll change quite a bit. But I can export now, and it's going to save this as a picture file. So as that goes through, you can see that we see the green check mark. That's what we want to see, and we'll go through instances where it does not go that way. But if I come in here now, I now have a picture file. And if I drag it over of the map itself, that we can then share, put in a PowerPoint presentation, put in an article, put in all sorts of things that you could work with from there. So with that, I know Thursday was a pain in the ass for all of us, but Arc can work properly. We'll use some other files going forward. But if there are any questions, feel free to reach out. Until next time, good luck.